Human resources? More like waste of resources. Okay, I had to make this video because I hear from workers every single day who make legitimate complaints to HR, only to find out later that HR was sabotaging them from the second they made that complaint. And a lot of the time, these workers can even lose their job. So in this video, I'm going to warn you about all the nasty things that I see HR departments do to workers and how you can protect yourself. So stick around. The first thing to consider is that HR departments protect the company, not the worker. A lot of workers think that their company's HR department is a safe place to go with their workplace grievances. And of course workers think that because that's exactly what HR departments and companies will tell you. Unfortunately, this could not be farther from the truth. An HR department's primary role is to protect the company that employs them. And they protect the company by limiting the company's legal liability. So, from the company's perspective, workers who complain to HR create legal risk because workers who complain to HR are the same types of workers who might bring legal claims later on. And the things that those workers are complaining about are the same things that they may bring legal claims about later on. So HR departments are early warning systems to spot problematic workers who might sue the company later on. So once you make a complaint to HR, the HR department does not respond as a way of helping you. It responds in a way that will protect the company. And most of the time, that response will hurt the worker making the complaint, not help them. The next reason why HR is not your friend is because HR does not keep things confidential, despite what they may tell you. Many workers think that if they make a complaint to HR, that HR is going to keep that complaint confidential. And those workers usually have good reason to believe it too, because HR reps will say that they will keep your complaint confidential. But let me be very clear about this point. HR does not keep your complaint confidential. I have talked to hundreds of employees who have made confidential HR complaints, only to find out that HR turned around and shared the details of their complaint, either with management or a lot of the time, HR will even share your complaint with the person whom you are complaining about, which as you can imagine, usually does not end well. And HR can get away with it because there is no law requiring them to keep anything confidential. So they don't. Now, sometimes HR will investigate your complaint. Usually they only do this because they kind of have to under the law. To understand when HR needs to investigate a complaint, watch my video on hostile work environment. I'll put a link in the description and in the card. But anyway, sometimes they need to launch an investigation. Now, to understand HR's investigations though, we have to remember back to that first point we discussed. HR protects the company, not the worker. And it protects the company by limiting the company's legal liability. And if you made a complaint that HR has to investigate now, that means that you have already created legal liability for the company. So HR's investigation of your complaint will be a complete sham, and they will use that investigation to set you up. They won't talk to the witnesses that help your case, they will only talk to the witnesses that hurt your case. And they will eventually conclude in their investigation that there was no evidence of wrongdoing. And they may even conclude that you were the problem, not the person whom you were complaining about. And I'm sure you're thinking to yourself, geez, this is terrible, isn't this all super illegal? And the answer is no. The unfortunate truth is that most workers do not have any due process rights at work. So you don't have the right to a fair investigation or a fair trial or anything really. If the company chooses to do an investigation, it will be an unfair investigation. And they will use that investigation as an opportunity to build a case against you to protect the company. Now, before I get into this one, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate from HR people, and I know you're not all bad. Maybe I just deal with the bad ones. But here's what I have observed dealing with hundreds of HR representatives. They lie to protect the company. Once you initiate your complaint with HR, you may notice that HR will only want to communicate with you in person or on the phone. So there's no written record of your communications. And any notes that they take during those meetings will somehow magically disappear. And they won't remember any of the important details once I am the one asking the questions. And the HR rep may even work with your manager to point out performance deficiencies to write you up, so that if you ever do sue the company, they can point to those write-ups and say you were a bad employee. And I've seen this play out so many times I can't even tell you. So what can you do about it? Let's briefly go over that now. So making any complaint to HR is going to paint a big target on your back. But certain complaints shield you from retaliation. And by that I mean, if you complain about certain things to HR, they may still fire you for it, but at least you'll be able to sue the company for retaliation if they do. So let's go over the protected complaints now. Complaining about discrimination based on your protected characteristics like your race, sex, gender, or disability, just to name a few. Complaining about harassment based on one of those protected characteristics. Complaining about the employer's wage violations like the employer's violations of overtime laws. Complaining about the employer's unsafe working conditions like the employer's violations of OSHA. Complaining about lack of accommodations for your disability or your pregnancy. Requesting a reasonable accommodation for your disability or pregnancy. There are other protected complaints you can make too, but I can't name every single one of them in this video because it will take all day. But watch the rest of the videos on my channel to learn more about protected complaints. The point is that if you make a complaint to HR that is not protected, your HR will probably retaliate against you in some way. And unfortunately, there's not really anything you can do about it, even if the complaint is completely legitimate. So there you have it. Now you know all the terrible tricks HR plays on workers. So if you were thinking about making a complaint to HR, just be aware that you are stepping into a minefield. If you think you were fired for an illegal reason and you live in Washington State, feel free to contact my firm. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like and follow my channel. I make videos about the laws that protect workers. The more we hold employers accountable for their wrongdoing, the more we protect other workers. That's all for me this week. See you next time.